We covered Burt Reynolds and the Trans Am, but today we're talking about the other half of the most iconic team in 1970s road movie history, the rig, the big rig, the 1974 Kenworth W900A that hauled 400 cases of Coors beer from Texarkana to Atlanta, while every highway patrol car in the South was supposed to be looking the other way. Welcome back to Cinebuster. The Trans Am gets all the attention. It always has. But the Kenworth was the mission. Without the truck, there is no run. Without the run, there is no film. Today, we're tracking down what actually happened to those trucks after Smokey and the Bandit wrapped. Hit that like button and subscribe to Cinebuster so you never miss another one of these. Let's go. Before we talk about the trucks themselves, we need to talk about the man behind the wheel. Because Jerry Reed's relationship to this film and to this vehicle is more complicated and more interesting than the comedy sidekick role might suggest. Hal Needham's original script had Reed cast as Bo Bandit Darville, the lead, the fast car driver, the guy running the play. It was only after Burt Reynolds read the script and agreed to come aboard that the role shifted. Reynolds became the Bandit, and Reed became Cletus Snowman Snow, the man who actually drove the truck. That shift mattered for how the Kenworth reads on screen. Reed was not playing a supporting character who happened to be in a truck. He was a genuine co-lead who happened to have a more complicated vehicle. Snowman is competent, dry, and unflappable. A man who can do 28 hours through 6 states in a loaded 18-wheeler while keeping his Basset Hound Fred comfortable and maintaining radio contact with a man in a Trans Am who is losing his mind. The Kenworth is not comic relief. It is the whole point. And Reed played it that way. Reed was also an accomplished guitarist and songwriter whose credentials far exceeded what most casual film fans realized. He wrote and performed Eastbound and Down specifically for this film, a song that became inseparable from the entire era. He also wrote The Bird with Chet Atkins, collaborated with Elvis Presley, and built a career in country music that ran parallel to his acting work for decades. He passed away in September 2008. His daughter has been clear over the years that the Smokey films were generally dear to him, and that the truck was a big part of that. Here is the first thing most people get wrong about Snowman's truck. There was not one, there were three. Three Kenworth W900A short-frame semi-trucks were used during the production of Smokey and the Bandit. All three were finished in the same coffee brown paint with gold trim. All three pulled the same 48-foot mural trailer, hand-painted with a scene depicting a stagecoach robbery, manufactured by Hobbs Trailers in Texas. All three were equipped with 38-inch sleeper cabs. On screen, they were interchangeable. Off screen, there was one key detail that told them apart. Two of the three trucks were 1974 models. You can identify them by their grille, which carries the standard silver Kenworth emblem. The third truck was a 1973 model, specifically a 50th anniversary edition, identifiable by a gold-painted Kenworth emblem on the grille, marking the company's half-century in business. In motion, on film, you have to know where you're looking for to tell them apart. Most viewers never noticed. The production was not trying to hide it. They just needed three trucks that looked the same and performed the same, and they got close enough that nobody in 1977 cinema asked questions. Under the hood, the W900A carried what was then one of the most trusted engines on American highways, a twin-turbo Cummins diesel, with some trucks in that model line optionally equipped with Caterpillar 3408 engines instead. The W900A was not chosen for the film because it was exotic or custom. It was chosen because it was real. A truck that actual long-haul drivers were running across actual American highways at that exact moment. The production wanted authenticity, and the Kenworth W900A was the most authentic choice available. The 10-hole Alcoa polished aluminum wheels were a factory upgrade option on Kenworths of the era and gave the screen trucks their distinctive look. The chrome bumpers, the chrome grille accents, the overall stance, all of it was stock. No Hollywood modifications required. The truck was already the truck. Now here's a detail that deserves more attention than it typically gets, because it connects the film directly to one of the most significant regulatory moments in American communications history. The CB radio situation in Smokey and the Bandit is not simple. Multiple radios appear in multiple vehicles across different scenes, and they are not all the same unit. In the opening B-roll footage of the semi, exterior and interior shots establishing the truck before the story kicks in. The radio visible in the cab is a Pace CB145. This is the unit the production placed specifically in the truck for those early establishing shots. It is a compact period-correct AMCB unit manufactured by Pathcom under the Pace brand, and it appeared in the cab of the Kenworth in those opening frames. For most of the film's main driving sequences, the radio Jerry Reed uses as Snowman is the Pace CB166, a slightly more featured unit from the same manufacturer, also used in the Trans Am's B-roll footage. Here is why the channel count on any of these radios matters. In 1977, when Smokey and the Bandit was filmed and released, the Federal Communications Commission had just authorized an expansion of CB radio from 23 channels to 40. That expansion had only just been implemented that same year. Prior to 1977, every CB radio legally sold and operated in the United States was limited to 23 channels, a restriction the FCC had held in place since originally designating the Citizens band spectrum in 1958. You'll notice that in the film. Bandit and Snowman's radio chatter never references a channel higher than 23. That is not a continuity error. That is the reality of what CB radio was in America in the summer of 1977. A 23-channel world in the middle of becoming a 40-channel world. And most of the equipment on the road, including the equipment in these trucks, reflected where the technology was, not where it was heading. The CB boom of the mid-1970s is worth understanding in context. The 1973 oil crisis and the resulting nationwide 55-mile-per-hour speed limit had driven CB adoption through the roof among truckers, who used the radios to warn each other about speed traps, coordinate fuel stops during the gas shortages, and maintain contact across long runs. By 1977, that culture had fully crossed over into mainstream American life. Films like Smokey and the Bandit and the concurrent hit Convoy were not inventing CB culture. They were reflecting something that was already everywhere. The Pace radios in those Kenworths were not props in the decorative sense. They were working equipment of a specific moment in American life, captured on film at the exact peak of its cultural relevance. Quick pause. If you're learning something today and you haven't already subscribed, then hit the subscribe button on Cinebuster right now and smash that like button while you're at it. We track down the real histories behind the vehicles that define the films you grew up with. We'll be right back because the whereabouts of these trucks is the part the internet has been arguing about for 20 years. Before we get into where the trucks went, there is one production detail worth knowing, because it changes how you watch certain sequences in the film. For many of the wide-angle driving shots, especially those involving the Kenworth at full speed on the highway, Jerry Reed was not behind the wheel. The truck was loaded onto a lowboy flatbed trailer and towed by a second 18-wheeler positioned out of frame, while Reed sat in the cab of the Kenworth for the camera. The production needed clean footage of Reed in the truck's interior, with the road passing convincingly in the background, and the logistics of running a fully loaded Kenworth at production speed while managing camera rigs, safety protocols, and lighting made the flatbed approach the practical choice for many of those shots. This was standard production practice for big vehicle scenes in that era, and it's not a knock on Reed, the film, or anyone involved. The sequences where Reed actually drives the truck, the close quarters maneuvering, the specific stunt beats, are real. But the long-haul highway cruising shots that established the truck's presence across the landscape were handled the way large-scale vehicle footage was routinely handled in the 1970s. The truck looked like it was doing 70. The truck was doing whatever speed the low boy was pulling it at. Nobody in the audience knew. Nobody needed to. This is where the story gets genuinely difficult, because the honest answer is that nobody knows for certain where any of the three production Kenworths ended up. And that is not a dramatic framing. That is the actual state of the research. The trucking enthusiast community, collectors, private investigators, and film historians have been working this question for decades. The forum record going back to at least 2009 is full of people who try to find these trucks and hit dead ends. What we can tell you is what the most credible leads suggest, and where the speculation ends. The most significant claim in the community record comes from forum discussions on the American trucking enthusiast circuit, where multiple independent sources have reported that 2 of the 3 Kenworths were destroyed in a warehouse fire at Universal Studios. This matches a pattern that has appeared in the documented history of other Smokey production vehicles. Hollywood prop storage has historically been indifferent to preservation. and fires in studio lot warehouses have claimed vehicles from several major productions over the decades. If 2 of the 3 trucks burned, that narrows the survival question to 1. The remaining truck has generated its own legend. Credible reports from people who identified themselves as working in the motion picture industry, posted on enthusiast forums over a period of years, placed one of the surviving Kenworths in Valdosta, Georgia in the late 1980s, behind a welding shop on Airport Road, owned by Wallace Trailers. The same sources indicate the truck was sold from there, reportedly still running, to a buyer in Madison, Florida, where it was subsequently left on the edge of a woodline and eventually had a tree fall across the trailer, which destroyed it. A separate, wholly unverified claim places one of the Kenworths in a field in Arkansas off an interstate exit, sitting since approximately 1990 with the weeds grown to the height of the air breathers. That claim has circulated for years. At least one person has hired a private investigator to chase it. However, nobody has produced photographs of this truck. The community consensus at this point is that it may be a ghost. A story that got repeated often enough to feel like fact without ever being confirmed. Here's the one confirmed survivor from the Smokey and the Bandit fleet that we can point to with something approaching certainty. The 48-foot mural trailer, the Hobbs trailer built unit with the hand-painted stagecoach robbery scene on its side, is documented as sitting on the property of Riverwood Studios in Sonoy, Georgia, the production facility where The Walking Dead was filmed for most of its run. It is outside, in the open. It is not in a museum. It is not behind a fence with a placard. It is a trailer on a studio lot that happens to be one of the more historically significant pieces of 1970s American road movie history. And here's where the internet got something wrong for years. The Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 10 featured a Kenworth W900 truck in a scene that had enough visual similarity to Snowman's rig to send the fan community into a brief collective celebration. The truck in that Walking Dead scene is not one of the original production vehicles. It is a near-perfect replica built by Brad's Classic Trucks in Arkansas. A tribute build, not a survival. The same replica is believed to be the truck seen at Wounded Warriors charity events in the years following its construction. The confusion is understandable. The replica is that good, but it is a replica. The production Kenworths themselves have not been publicly located. Here's the speculation worth having, and we want to be clear that this is speculation, because the trail on these trucks is cold enough that honest speculation is more useful than false certainty. If the warehouse fire story is accurate, and 2 of the 3 Kenworths were destroyed, then the question is whether the surviving truck met its end in Madison, Florida, or is sitting in a field in Arkansas, or simply passed through enough private hands that it has become effectively invisible. A 1974 Kenworth W900A, without its coffee brown and gold paint job, looks like any other W900 from that era. There are no chassis modifications, no special mechanical features, no interior detail that a casual observer would connect to a film. The identity of these trucks lives in the paint, the mural trailer, and the documentation, and all 3 of those things are easy to lose over 50 years. The most interesting scenario is the Madison, Florida lead. If that truck was sold running and simply parked in a wood line on private property, it could theoretically still be there. Engine seized, body deteriorated, but physically present. It would not be findable through traditional search methods without knowing the specific property. A private collector with the right contacts and the willingness to work through rural Florida property records might get somewhere. Nobody has reported doing that yet, at least not publicly. The truck's coffee brown paint and the unmistakable proportions of the W900A will be identifiable even under significant deterioration. If it is out there, it is findable. The question is, who has the combination of resources and motivation to go look? 3 Kenworth W900As, 2 probably destroyed in a warehouse fire, 1 that may be rotting in the Florida woods, sitting in an Arkansas field, or long since gone to scrap with nobody watching. The trailer is in Sonoy. The radios are in private collections. The film is as good as there ever was. And the community has been looking for these trucks for the better part of 20 years without a confirmed answer. If you have seen a coffee brown W900A with gold trim sitting somewhere off an interstate exit with weeds growing into the cab, the comment section is open and we're listening. Drop a comment, subscribe to Cinebuster, and we'll see you in the next lane, eastbound and down.